Hey, 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 everybody. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for joining us for this month's Every Day is Black Mental Health Day. So, I want to take time to introduce everybody because that is not something we actually do every month. So, I am Dr. Tiana Charles. I am the CEO of Kalai Peace Corner in San Antonio, Texas, but I'm also licensed in 6 other states. So, I serve Kansas, California, Nevada, South Carolina, Alabama as well. And next to me is Darian.
Yes. I am Darian Rose, CEO of Therapeutic Rose Counseling. I am licensed within the state of Texas. I am now a LPCS. I'm a supervisor, so I will be taking on interns here very soon. And I'm looking forward to expanding my practice in other states and being in the company of great other therapists that are here today.
Awesome.
And Terry.
I am Terry Terrell out of Wichita, Kansas. I am the CEO of Odyssey Counseling and Consulting. I am in Kansas and working on my clinicals. I am LMFSW, social worker by trade, therapist. So doing big things in Kansas, creating spaces, having conversations with men about mental health. I see youth as well as families as well as individuals, so and adults. So make it happen here.
Thank you, Jonathan.
What up with it? I am Jonathan Caesar, the owner of Green Shore Counseling. Green like the color, short like the ocean. I'm based out of Houston, Texas. I'm a licensed professional counselor. And yeah, we get it rocking over here.
And Brandon.
What's good, y'all? My name is Brandon Vasquez. I'm the owner and CEO of We Up Counseling and Consulting. I'm based out of Houston, and I work with black men and the people who love them.
I love that.
Oh,
Uh,
and I'm licensed in DC as well as Texas.
I love that. So everybody on this call has a wealth of knowledge and expansion, right? So I don't think I've mentioned, but I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And so I also wanted to show that we can come together, social workers, counselors. If we had some LMFT friends, they'd be on here too. So we got to work together to serve our community, no matter which profession you are a part of. And so today's conversation is about access. We named it Access is Power, why Black communities are all often the last to know. And so this came about by Jonathan. He had the idea of how do we bring the idea of remembrance for Juneteenth into the conversations that we have about wellness. And so reality is, when it comes to Juneteenth, our people were legally free, but they didn't know they were free for about 2 years after that. And so when we think about Black people in general, many enslaved people remained in bondage, remained like they didn't know about the critical information. It never reached them. And so that brings the reality of what happens when access is delayed, restricted, or unevenly distributed. And so when we think about today, that looks a little bit different, but there's still op, ooh, I'm going. There's still situations where we're the last to know about opportunities, we're the last to know about resources, we're the last to understand the different systems that impacts our lives. And so we wanted to kind of talk about that. It's not about necessarily blaming our community or blaming the individuals that we serve or us as individuals either, because a lot of times us as professionals are often the last to know about things. But we want to explore like how do we get that information? What is the intersection between access, power, survival, and how do we break those cycles? So the first question that I have is when you hear the phrase last to know, what comes to mind to you?
Mm.
Hmm.
All right, I was trying to let somebody go, but I'm gonna go. All right, and yeah, I don't know. I just be going. So, but when I hear last to know, it ties into what we talk about, right? It ties into I really just take it back to the whole Juneteenth situation. It's like, God damn, we was free, and then like y'all knew this, and then ain't nobody tell us. So that's when I hear last to know, I think about that, especially in this context. And then it's like, okay, if you fast forward that however many years it's been, it's still like access to like education. It's still like last to know. And I speak on education because I used to be a teacher, and I think about like the times when my mom was, I know I'm going all over the place, but the time when my mom was talking about like schools being desegregated and everything, like she kind of, I think she was a part of that, like she experienced that. And then I worked in a school and noticing today how schools are still segregated. Like I worked in a school where if the bilingual classrooms was on one side and the regular classrooms on the other side. If you live in a certain area, the whole school white. If you live in another certain area, the whole school black. So when I think of last to know, it takes me. I keep getting stuck on Juneteenth, but I also kind of like fast forward and it's just like everything in life we never find out until like 2 years after it was already hot. Like whatever we doing today, we should this right here we should have did 2 years ago. Is
Mhm.
kind of what I'm saying. And I'll listen. What else go?
And also, like when I think about what you just said, a lot of times it's a mentality too, right? Like I think about when we were in school and stuff like that. A lot of our kids, we go to people that look like us, and we also still sit in the back of the bus, right? Um, so like it's kind of a mentality that is ingrained in us too, even though it's subconscious, it still is there.
And
Yeah.
you brought up back of the bus. We used to freestyle on the back of the bus. Like every that is interesting. I never thought of that. Why do we sit? We used to sit in the last row on the bus.
Well, we
I
know
think
why.
Why?
Oh,
Oh,
you
I mean,
see.
oh, okay. All right, all right.
he don't want to open it up in a whole other
I
question,
thought
but
of, I thought of. My bad, my bad, my bad. I think I was gonna let somebody else go. All right.
well, physically, but also psychologically too. You think about what responsibility of having the information allows you to do, but also the responsibility of and the pressure of doing something important with that information. I think when we talk about being last to know, obviously, one of the things that can bring up for a lot of people is power differentials and dynamics, right? What does having more information allow you to do? What type of advantages does that allow you to do? I just think about, if we're just thinking about money, for instance, there was a situation earlier in this year where this administration with stocks in Trump, and he sent something out said this would be a good time for some trading to go on with such and such. It was regarding tariffs, and everybody that had that information that was on Truth Social or had access to that information at that time was able to buy stocks and certain things, and they tripled their income, their profit in certain things, right? So having access to certain information has always been a power thing, and it always has a power dynamic to it.
Definitely do. I think when I hear that last to know, is the last to receive the information. And what you do with the information is what we do with the information. That what really matters. Even though we have it last, and we tying it back to June 19th, and we tying it back to, I'm gonna say our culture. Once we get the information, it's what we do with it. Once we have it, even though we might be the last to have it. I think that's a very another aspect of this conversation too. Like once we get it, what do we do with it? Where do we go? What do we have access to? Do we actually execute the significance of learning that very important information? But it's the last to receive the information.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Mm.
For for me, again, what being the last to know me, what that means to me, what comes to mind for me is kind of like finding out there's a different way of doing something after you've already like bumped your head, saying whether that be in like investing or therapy, healthcare, and stuff like that. It just feels like we are paving new ground, and then we getting bruised up, and then after we're healing, we realize like, oh yeah, there was this whole path, well lit that was available for you, and you don't find out about that until after you don't already done took your lumps. Um, I will say that like because of that, as a therapist, I often see people kind of like make a kind of a mistake of a lack of exposure for a lack of ability. So it's like you do something and you didn't know no better, so to speak. You didn't have the information, but then you internalize that as if like you should have like been able to pull that information from the ether, and have known or have been telepathic, but nobody really taught you. No one really put you on. We don't have this information does not flow freely within our community. And there's a myriad of reasons for that, but for me, it just feels like there's like a world out there where there's signs and arrows pointing you to where you want to be, but we just don't have we don't know it's there.
No, they don't tell us, man. It ain't like we ain't find it. They're like hidden. Like the signs are like around the corner. They're like, y'all can't go around that corner. So look at the sign.
I mean, but historically, they've always weaponized and utilized that information and the lack thereof of information. If we think back even to slavery, Jim Crow, all that is information that was hidden. I mean, if we even think politically, how making decisions and voting really late in the middle of the night and then letting everybody else know that these laws have been passed 2 or 3 days later. Look at the advantage that they give certain groups and certain people.
Absolutely. It's always really been, like y'all said, connected to power. There's always been a tie between information, knowledge, and power. Like even when we think about the literacy laws and voting rights, like we just got voting rights in this century, really. So that's crazy. Like I think a lot of people think just because it's in a history book, it happened hundreds of years ago, and it didn't.
That's
Mhm.
100 years ago.
I agree.
And so,
Control information, you control power. It's control.
mm-hmm. And you control who has access to different opportunities as well. So why do y'all think the information has historically been withheld from our communities?
Well, I'm gonna go first on this one because like it's going back to that whole power and control. Like if you have the ability to read, it's really hard for for somebody to finesse you out of something. Using these contracts that these folks came up with. What I'm saying, like having not having the education, not having access to financial systems, and being able to own property, which means being able to wealth build. Um, not knowing your rights because they're passing them in the heat of the night, and then they make it illegal for you to read, so you can't read what the laws are, so you just kind of out here bumbling and you stumbling across illegalities and you don't know, but they hold that against you. And I think that was by design. Like the only way to catch you is to like deny you the ability to see the truth.
Mm.
For sure. Any
Run,
other?
run the question to me one more time.
So why do you feel like information has historically been held from our communities?
Okay, I'm thinking on it.
Well,
I
I just
think
think
it's been
about
held. I think it's been held from our communities because they know if we had that information, how powerful we'll be. Go back to
They scared, boy.
the movie. I believe Higher Learning. Knowledge is power. I believe that was in Higher Learning, or that was in one of the movies. But knowledge is
it
power.
was.
They know if we had it and what we'll do with it. I think it would not only shape and redefine American history with the little bit of information that we do get, even when we are the last of the party. Look how much have reshaped America, this world, matter of fact. So think about if we actually they gave us the information, or we had the information, or created the information, America would look totally different, and that's a very scary thing for them to recognize or to acknowledge. And so they know that, but that's why I think it's why we get elected because if we had it, look what we done with the little bit that we had, showing up last to the party.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I would like to even reframe that of of showing up last to the party, right? Because that kind of puts the idea like we're choosing to show up last to the party, right?
Mhm.
And so I want to reframe that a little bit. You know, I think back to even like the slavery and Reconstruction. Like there was laws and slave codes, and like later became black codes that made it illegal and dangerous for like the slaves to read. Right? We talked a little bit about that and how important education and applied education is, and when you can keep people ignorant and denying literacy, and how that kept people dependent and easier to control. That type of stuff. When you talk about allowing certain information to be given, then you really, I think, overall, now that person or those groups of people can become competition, right? And so, in this space where white supremacy has often wanted to keep control, then obviously the advantage is from denying certain information, denying funding, denying resources, um, making sure that the schools of certain groups are outdated. They don't have the resources and programs that allow them to be able to even become competitive. It's always been a tool of white supremacy to continue to control certain minority spaces.
That's a great point. How do you feel like now our community still fit into this idea that we're the last to know? Like, has there ever been a time where you've experienced it? And what did that look like?
Hmm.
I want to just kind
Kind
of
of threw that on y'all. Y'all didn't prep for
no,
that.
no, no. I ain't practicing none, but I want to jump on. I want to jump on that last one real quick because Darian said something that kind of popped out to me, and just like how talented like we are as Black people and how like leaders we are just naturally. And I think about like
Good.
we invent cool, like we are whatever's in style at the moment, like we are that, we created that. And it's like, so we naturally had this ability, and we've done so much with the scraps, so just a little bit, and we've made it so far, like as far as like scientists and all these people that do all of these things. But like just such a what's the opposite of a head start? Like a start from behind, whatever.
Mhm.
So
Restriction.
what you say?
I was just saying restriction, delayed start. I was just thinking,
Thank
Mm.
you. A restriction or a delayed start. So it's like I can't say why they want us to hold us back, right? I mean, we all can kind of assume and kind of know, but it's like, damn, if we had the same opportunities, which they act like we have, and we know that we don't, if we had the same opportunities, like, what would this be? Like, what would America look like? Like,
And that's the answer they don't want.
yeah, like, what would
That's the
this be?
question we didn't want to answer to.
And
right.
that wasn't the answer to your next question. Like, when have we felt? What was it? When did we feel held back?
Yeah. So, how do you feel like it's still showing up in our community, and have you ever experienced it? Like, for example, I feel like it's very difficult for us to promote um in the way to get to a promotion. It's always like hidden, like it's like you pass the evaluation and then you have to re-interview, and then to re-interview there's a certain type of like recipe, and you got to make this person happy, or there's always so much more that you have to do to get to a higher level. That's one of the first things that I think about, and even when it comes to like experience, right? Like I remember once early in my career I applied for a promotion, and I didn't get it because one of the questions was, what is something that you what do you identify as your weaknesses, right? um and of course, when you're early in your career, you're going to answer some of these questions honestly. And so one of the things I had mentioned was, I really want to improve on my systems and how to organize myself a little bit better, right? But when you think about, if someone else was to say something like that, right, it would have been looked at completely different. So in their mind, oh, So you're unorganized and all of these different stereotypes that come with people of color. But again, I was early in my career, so I had no idea about these stereotypes that come up, and how that would impact me in moving up in my career and stuff like that. So it's just even understanding that there is a game that you have to play to get higher. I feel like plays into that last to know conversation, because you don't know that there's a game to play. Then how do you beat um that situation?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think for that, like that explanation was helpful. It made me think of Kanye when he was like, even if you're in a Benz, you still a nigga in the coupe. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
when we talk about that, just what you said, I think about like me, for example, because it's like our personal experience. It's like, yo, I got all the licenses and degrees and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm just a nigga in a hoodie to them. And I feel like that, like we're discredited. Like it don't matter what we do or what we have, it's still how you say it, like you need to be better at systems. They just put it with you're disorganized or whatever. So it's like no matter what we do, we're still viewed as like a nigga.
Mhm. And I guess to piggyback on it, to answer your one of your questions was, I think I heard you say, was like, how have you noticed it showing up in our community to this day? Like, how is it still like impacting us? And what comes to mind for me right now is like, I know of several people who are to this day still like the first of like their family to have done something, whether that be the first to get on a home or the first person to like go to college, or the first person to like not be broke, so to speak, like have some disposable income. Um, and that's still happening like right now to this day. Like they're just making that happen. um and for me, when I think about the when one of those times when I feel like I hit my head and it was like, why didn't I know this information, was when I was going to college, when I was applying for colleges. I didn't know that there were scholarships available for people to like go to school outside of the state or just go within the state. I thought it was just it was only like one scholarship that they had that was statewide, and they just focused on that, like stay in state, stay in state, stay in state. That's the only one you have. If you don't get this one, you got to come out of pocket, and that's what I thought. That's what I believed, and it wasn't until I really like had graduated, it was like, yeah, they had, they be having, you could have had a full ride, if you went to all these colleges, had all these programs available, and I didn't know, and I was like, how are we supposed to know this information if the people whose job it is to tell us don't be telling us?
Not even
Right.
that, but the whole idea of FAFSA and how that actually works, right?
Just go
Like,
to debt.
I was told that that was free money. And then
I
I
honestly don't know how it works to this day.
found out very
Yeah.
quickly half of those are loans.
Mm-hmm. It's debt, and so your option is get this one specific scholarship that don't cover everything, or go into debt, 100% or 75%. And then it's like, oh yeah, there's a whole plethora of options out here that you could have taken advantage of if only you would have known about it.
Who's responsible for that though? Because that's a big one.
The
Because
guidance counselors.
yeah, that's what I'm about to say. Wouldn't that fall on the counselors at school? Aren't they supposed to be
Yes,
like, all right,
yes.
so then how do they? Because do y'all think they like take? Okay, so you have the black kids over here, right? So it's like, they ain't about to do much. So like, are they putting more of their time and effort into certain groups of students to get
Yes.
scholarships?
I think there's unconscious biases that operate in every system, but I think that would be a great one to point out. Um, like how does those micro systems really harm some of the black and brown community? When you have
Hmm.
teachers that are in spaces, when you have principals, and you have school systems that are underfunded, and they're not allowing certain, I think I brought up earlier talking about the funding. The funding is a real deal, right? If we have political people in places that take funding from our schools, and now
Hmm.
certain schools don't have the resources, and slowly starts getting rid of programs that the kids were using, single parent homes might have been really leaning heavily on those after school programs because she had to work two jobs, and this was a place where little John could no shade John could go to a
It's
program
Jonathan, I'm cool.
go to a program and be around other kids and do something productive. when those programs no longer exist because of funding, I think, man, it really does hurt. I think the last one I wanted
Yeah.
to bring up was the media representation, because I don't think we talk about that very much, right? What does it look like to have somebody that looks like you uh, be knowledgeable in different spaces? And I think all of us can talk about the importance, especially me in a predominantly conservative space, conservative white space, where these kids see me as an expert. People hear me, and they're able to get and have an understanding, a cultural appropriate understanding of what mental health looks like for Black and Brown people. That's huge.
That's real.
That's a
And I
great.
think it also matters. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think it also matters, like to your point, like where you live. So me growing up in Florida and going to school in Florida, that's all I knew. All that, it wasn't until I like left Florida and went travel to like DC and went to school there that I realized like how much I wasn't taught, how much I didn't know just about Black people, period, and just the world. It was like another type of like culture shock, and seeing the different levels of education that exists, or across the country. Some places the education is significantly better than others, and Florida was not towards the top. I will say that.
And then to add to that, man, like with my own children, man, I feel like you got to teach your own kids because the schools they teach so much, especially when we talk. I'm not speaking of like just teaching Black history, but I just think Black people are in history. So whatever you teach, like it's a certain lens that got to be taught through, and it'll be taught
Hmm.
through a lens that's looking at like they'll they'll tell a story up to a certain point, and then it's like, oh, everybody wanted to be all inclusive, and it's like that's not what really happened. You know what I'm saying? It'll get fuzzy. So it's like as parents, we gotta try to teach our own kids. But then when we talk about the government, they're taking a lot of things away to even be able to present to your kids. They're taking stuff out the museums if you want to do it on your own. It's tough. So that goes back to last to know. It's like even if we are at the end of the line to find out and we want to go try to get the information and bring the information to our children or whatever, they hiding that.
They burning the books.
Also, I think you guys bring up a great point. Like, well, I think about the whole travel thing. I was actually just having a conversation the other day about traveling outside of the country and how much that is a lack. Like, there's a lack of access for people of color to do that. Um, but I think a lot of that is instilled fear too, because one of the first things people say is, "Oh, so you're going over there? It's dangerous. It's dangerous here too. It's just as dangerous here as it is anywhere else, if not more dangerous." And so, um, just holding like there's a people are being held back to explore what the world can teach you as well. Like there's so many different cultures and there's so many different ways that people see things, but we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to do that. Um, and I will say that there's some systemic barriers to that as well. For example, for example, if you are a single parent, you have to have the other parent's signature in order to get a passport, like stuff like that, right? And then if you don't have the other parent involved, then there's a whole process to get around that. So there's definitely barriers, um, but just understanding that you should be able to explore it without the fear of exploring other countries.
I
Can
want to
you?
say, to answer your question too, and I
Oh,
might have
yeah.
a slightly different perspective because I'm kind of going through it now. Like when you ask us how does it impact us and or the culture, as far as getting information less, I'm thinking about like right now. I've been having my private practice, but like you said, when someone said, the first to go, we're the first generation to go to college, to have businesses, to have all of those things. And I think when you become the first, some people, not all, are initially happy for you and
Mhm.
proud and they rooting for you. However, though, that doesn't necessarily carry over into the information that we may need. Like, yes, a lot of people might be happy when we all got our degrees. Oh, you want to be a counselor or you want to be psychologist or you want to be a social worker, they are happy. But then when you open your business, they happy for the business, but they don't know the information that it takes. And I don't think I know for me. I took all psychology classes. I didn't take a business class to run a business. But essentially, majority of all psychology majors, if you want to go off into the field and have your own business, it might be important for you to take a business class because learn how you got to
Sure.
turn in your taxes too. You got to go on that Texas Controller website, and we don't know that. Not only do we don't know that when we sit down, sometimes we don't share that information. I'm gonna hold our feet to the fire when we talk about our culture. I think sometimes we don't share that information with each other. Sometimes we do. I'm not gonna say it's all the time, but sometimes we do. And when it comes to finances, when it comes to that can be a very sticky situation. But another reason why we are less because misinformation is spread amongst us, as well as not giving the right information.
Mm-hmm.
So like there, and then us not reaching out, like, oh, I didn't know that I have to go on here, but I have no one around me who runs a business, and even if they do, their business might not be active, so they might not know. So I think it's having those conversations, but going beyond what's a little bit uncomfortable too. Like, yeah, we might be last to the party, or the I don't know the correct title. I like how Brother Terry did put it, but even being at that table too, going back to like the execution. Like once we find out what do we do with that information? How do we execute? Are you keeping it to yourself because you're going through, or are you at least trying to give it? Hey, you want to be a therapist? I know with being a supervision, I'm gonna let. I never talk. They never talked about business part, right? They just talked about therapeutic approach. They talked about you know my clients and stuff like that. But what about the business? Hey, you might need to do this with your taxes. You might not telling me what to do, but at least showing me, hey, this is what you need to do. You need to go to this website. You need to do these things. So I think that information too need to be passed on. That's another reason that keep us back. Now it's like going to the barbershop. We talk all day in the barbershop, but a lot of it be a lot of misspread of information,
Information.
and some of it, not all of the information that that person said necessarily fits for you. You have to
Absolutely.
take
Yeah.
it and be, no, this is what I need from what it said. This is correct. He might have been wrong in his message, but that part is actually true. I can take this and execute it in my life. So knowing what is exactly for you and then reaching out when you really don't know, and getting past the fear of saying, I don't know. I think one of the most powerful things at a conference that I was a speaker at, a question was asked, and none of us knew the answer. And I remember looking, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna say something that we don't normally say. I do not know that answer. However, though, we can get together and we can try to figure out the answer together. And then that person actually did to find that answer. So again, I think it goes back to knowledge is power and getting outside your comfort zone when you don't know things too.
For sure. For sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's that's
Yeah.
that's 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 funny, Darren. I always say when I don't know the answer because sometimes I just don't be knowing. And I want to say something else too. Oh shit, where'd he go?
He
Um,
right
oh yeah, this thing, your camera ain't on either.
He in the
But
dark. Yeah, he in the dark.
I feel like
He in witness protection.
some of the way he said about just supervision and passing the information along. It's like I had a black supervisor, black male supervisor. So like he was really big on like, yo, this is how you get the business going. Like he definitely pushed me in that direction. So I feel like that's like on the responsibility of us or Darian, like as he's going into this next little chapter of his journey. It's like, yeah, you can teach the next generation of therapists how to do it the right way. Another a question I wanted to bring, I'm sorry, Dr. T, I know you had
No, go ahead.
I wanted to bring just I was thinking about it and he started talking and it just went together was like, all right, we this whole conversation we've been talking about how things have been kept away from us and how we've been held back. But like, what are times or how do we hold ourselves back? I guess how do we get in our own way as a people? Like, how do we block each other's blessings? I guess, or keep
Mm.
back in
I
line.
That's a
think
good question.
that is a great question, but I think that what I've noticed is instead of trying to seek mentorship or um, even encourage each other, right? A lot of times we're looked at as haters a lot of times we're looked at as jealous. A lot of like there's so much negativity that comes along with trying to see or gain information. So there's like a lot of gatekeeping, kind of what y'all were talking about. There's a lot of gatekeeping that happens when it comes to leveling up to the next level. And so I think that there's a fear of competition, but there's room for all of us. So I think that's how we hold ourselves back is instead of, oh, she's just jealous of me, is it I'm really just trying to help guide you. I'm really trying to help mentor you. This happened to me, and so I don't want you to experience the same hardships that I had to get to where I'm at. Um, so it's like a lack of trust that we innately have now, our generation, have in each other, but also people that don't look like us, which is understandable. But at the same time, we need to learn how to trust until, right? Because you can learn a lot from different people, regardless of what their intentions are. Do you know how to navigate that? Or are you willing to learn?
And basically, what I heard you say was pride and ego getting away of us.
Absolutely.
A lot of pride, a lot of ego, it definitely getting away.
For sure.
I think we
And
have to
then
also
the
acknowledge
skepticism.
that there's a lot of people that are operating from a survival mindset too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you're operating from a survival mindset, then everybody that criticizes or doesn't align with what you think can be perceived as a threat, whether they look like you or not, right? So I think that also, if we look at a bigger macro scale, I think there is a lot of galvanizing and grassroots type of stuff that is going on uh, when there is some obvious oppression from the top, head down, right? I think when it is clear that the person that's in charge of most systems doesn't view you as a human or have basic human rights, putting systems in place that put you at a disadvantage. I think there's a lot more galvanizing of minds to create some movement and some things that are going on. I think right now there's a lot of grassroots stuff that is starting to happen. There are more conversations that are starting to happen to move black and brown communities forward, and you have a lot of oppression from systems that are, I mean, their agendas are pretty clear right now. So so I think it's less about us holding ourselves back now, and more about people actually seeing the movements that are going and moving forward and hopping in on those.
For sure.
I agree on that. I'm gonna agree with that. I think it's a lot of fear at the heart of it. It's a lot of fear on both sides from the ones who are in a position to pass the game on, and fear from the people who are seeking the game, so to speak. As well as with the scarcity, what I'm saying, so that kind of that fear of like, well, I kind of just started figuring out how this is working. It's working well for me, and if I tell too many people this, they gonna close. I feel like I found a loophole, and if I tell too many people about this, the loophole will get closed, and then now we both asked out. But that also feeds into like a lot of the skepticism of like, if I tell you about this, how are you going to take advantage of me? Because that's the only thing that we can think about is like, if I choose wrong, I can't afford to choose wrong because like this is everything I got right here. If this goes wrong, I'm cooked. So I can't afford to extend the olive branch. I can't afford to give you that leg up or what have you, because I personally don't feel like I'm on solid ground. I'm barely hanging on as it is. And I think that goes to what you're saying about that survival, that scarcity mindset. And I think a lot of black community is definitely living in this very scarce mindset for justifiable reasons, of course.
That's real. That's real. Like, what happens to the person who hops out in first and takes on that responsibility? They usually get the brunt of consequences or oppression to tear that movement down, right? So no, that makes perfect sense, bro.
No one wants to be the leader. No one wants to be the leader of a movement because we know how they do it, how they do the leaders movements for it within our
You gotta be
community.
the second
So
person.
you gotta be the what?
The second person.
Yeah, but it be the second person. There got to be a first person.
Nah, the second person always make it through. We never hear about the first to do something. It was a guy with Amazon before. Y'all remember Ask Jeeves?
Yeah,
That was Google.
yeah, I remember actually. I was an Ask Jeeves first. I say I'm never gonna use Google. I'm an Ask Jeeves. I'm an MSN. I'm a Yahoo. And then look at me.
Listen. You should Ask Jeeves. It was great. You was the first with the idea, but Google did it better, and they came second. So now we know Google and Ask Jeeves. I feel like they just went out of business. So
Well, no, let me go put it in Google to see if they still around.
they did. Look, I think I think as Black people, we was always taught so many things to like be private and to not share, don't share about
Don't say
salary,
nothing.
share about none of that stuff, right? And I just feel like when you meet white people, they ask you two things: they introduce themselves and they ask you what you do. And I used to think they were just trying to get in my business and trying to figure stuff out, but really they just be networking at all times. And we got to do more of that.
They also be in your business.
Close friends, I don't know what they do.
So you got house friends.
That I don't know what they do. I don't know what their profession is.
Yeah. But that's also, that's a good point, because when we go out, a lot of time it's not networking all the time, right? Like half the time we don't care. But I think it's very true. It doesn't matter what you know, it's who you know.
Who you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because who you know will get you the information to what you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so also there we got people watching. So if y'all want to join the conversation, please chat with us. Throw your comments in the chat. Um, but yeah, I think that's a great point of like you are a walking billboard, right? And so you have to be okay with talking to people. Maybe getting a little nosy. We nosy anyway. Might as well
About the wrong things. We nosy about the wrong things. We need to be nosy
You
about
know, anyway,
stuff that's gonna put money in your pocket.
I prefer the term inquisitive.
okay.
Inquisitive. Okay. I like the reframe. Look at him.
Be inquisitive about random nonsense. Like be inquisitive about how you can like build with the next person. I feel like that's a learned thing too, because I learned it along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the power of it is huge.
I'm learning it now.
Yeah.
Still learning it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, still.
But I think that's
I'm still a novice.
goes back to learning that business side, right? Like a lot of other cultures have access to that behavior, because I do think it's a learned behavior to be business savvy early. And we don't always have that access. Sometimes we do. But even the people who are in our lives that have businesses, they're not really showing too much.
Or it's not even lined up properly. The business is a business is running, but is everything in order? Like, is it done the right way?
Mm-hmm.
And they teach us how, like the things Darren was just talking about, like, or is it just, they got a business?
So Dr.
LLC. That's it.
We also need to check our own trauma. It impacts how we perceive others and their intentions. That's so true too. And so like what's happened to us in the past, and how that impacts how other people show up. Like there's I think that goes back to how we were talking about a lot of people see other people as trying to um hinder
Finesse.
your progress or finesse or scam, but are they really trying to do that? And how has something that's happened in the past, how does that show up in the ways that you engage with people? I also thought about as we were talking about that, another thing that holds us back directly is the thought that we don't belong in certain spaces, right? So I'm the only one, I'm the token Black person, so I must not belong here. And so that imposter syndrome and hypervigilance show up often. And so understanding that you're in a space because you deserve to be there and that you belong there is so important too.
And that also has to be taught, though. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that deal with imposter syndrome in different career fields, and I think even with our ethnicity, when we do get into certain rooms, and there's a lot of people that don't look like us, the internal conflict that we have to, if you haven't been giving that identity to be able to stand strong in those spaces, that can dwindle a little bit. So yeah, that has to be kind of taught. I had to kind of figure that out myself when I
Mm-hmm.
get into a lot of high profile space.
Because you the first.
Yeah, to
Because
be
you the
the
first. You one of the first.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You the first one in.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot.
Like
You the
Jonathan said, then like I said, the second one, your kid, the second one in, they gonna have a game and they gonna navigate way easier than you did.
how
Yeah,
how do we this how do we jump the line though? Because even all of that is like, damn. Even when we figuring it out, like we might be the first to figure it out, but we still was the last with the information to be able to figure out or be able to step into a role and to get through the imposter syndrome. Like, how do we get ahead of that? Like, how do we beat that?
I think the systems matter too, though, because you can have the information and not have the systems to be able to utilize that information. I think I was seeing something in a quote. They was talking about Amazon and how they went almost 10 years without any profit, right? And had that been any other minority business,
Yeah,
there's no way in hell that would have been a true reality for that business to
mm,
go 10 plus years. But obviously, they were able to tap into a system that wanted them to succeed. And so, although they might have not had all the information, they had systems that allowed them to have longevity until they were able to implement that stuff in real time. And now look
mm.
at Amazon and today. I
And
think they
that's
overtook the number one spot.
mm-hmm.
Systems is that makes a lot of sense. Like I feel like systems in anything it'll run. Quit
And
trying
then
to
that
pass
oh,
buck and put some systems together. Basically,
Yeah.
yeah,
play the long game.
and,
But
and
we
that
got
reminds me. Oh, did I cut somebody off?
no, you're fine. I'm always talking.
Oh, okay, yeah. And Terry, and hear you say about like the systems and like how Amazon like took over. One thing I will say about them, people they have a system in place where like they can take losses until they can take over a certain sector, and then once they got it, then they come and get all the money plus whatever they lost back in the day because they got full control over it and they can do that. But that reminds me of like just like the differences between having those resources in the sense of like paid internships versus unpaid internships, and like how Black people and people who don't come from means can't afford to take unpaid internships because like all the benefits that you get from an unpaid internship, which is the network and being able to move in rooms where the movers and shakers are, you can't do it because I gotta get paid. I gotta pay these bills, and I don't have anybody to fall back on who's going to be paying for my rent, who's going to be paying for my bills while I take these next year or two in order to get the experience I need to take off. And that is like one of those differences in like availability of resources that I've seen and recognized. And I know it's still a thing, to this day. There's a lot of those high paying positions like in finance and business and all that stuff like that. There's a lot of internships that comes behind that, but a lot of them don't really pay. If they do pay, they don't pay enough for anybody, for a grown person to like be able to sustain themselves on it. So we automatically can't take it, and we lose out on the benefits of it, that of those positions.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I will say also, along the same lines of being unable to take some of these opportunities, right? I don't know that a lot of people know about fellowships and that they exist right now. Um, and so it's not necessarily while you're in school, but that transition in being open to what a fellowship can do for you, right? Because I think a lot of people, they get out of school and they think they're going to skyrocket with their paid job and whatever field that you're in. But a lot of times you do have to start, because there's also this impulsive like behaviors that we have now. Like there is a lack of impulse control. You have to have it right now. Like you have to be successful and have the high paying job right now. Like, but sometimes you are going to have to start at a lower level to get to where you want to be. But what does that look like? And what is the roadmap to get there? And so, just finding somebody that can help you create that and create those opportunities is important. So, um, we got about 10 minutes. Let's talk about breaking the cycle though. Like let's talk about solutions, because now we know that information is power. We know that there's power in sharing the information to empower. So what does breaking this cycle look like?
Oh, I want to add on to that. And what have you done to try to break it?
And what have you done to try to break it?
We're gonna
That's
start
a
with you,
great
Dr.
part.
T.
Me, this. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, that's real. This is true. This is a good
Great.
one. This is something. Yeah, this is something.
Yeah,
I ain't gonna hold you.
That's real. Yeah, say that.
Yeah, this is good.
say that.
No, I make it a point to bring someone along with me on the journey. So now I'm a supervisor for other students, I'm a supervisor for other social workers. So being able to share the knowledge that I've experienced so that they can prevent that in their space is important. So mentorship, right? Um, I try my best to create opportunity, whatever that looks like. So one of my I like to think it's a superpower is I'm able to really create ideas like this. Brandon knows, like you give me an idea and I will have a whole presentation. I'll have a whole event planned out for you in like 2 seconds. So I think that's my superpower. And so being able to give people ideas and experiences and being able to help them find their path creatively, I think that's what I've given back to breaking that cycle, because a lot of times you have to create your opportunity. It's not going to be given to you.
Mhm.
Real spill.
I
She's
think I'm in
ready.
the I think I'm in the transitioning stage of actually doing something about that, especially within our field. I do notice the scares, even though there are a total of 4 black men on this call, or well, on this podcast today. Um, the reason I want to be a supervisor is because one, not only giving back to our culture, but just giving back. Period. There are some supervisors who are in positions who, let's be honest, they're not really good at their position, but um I think the a reason I wanted to do this is because I started to notice too, like a lot of people come for me for information, and it's like, or advice, or another form of it, especially within this field. So it's like, well, let me go back and give this back. And I know this is a scarcity amongst us. So it's like, well, if I can get some, black male students, and or just black students or any students, but start teaching them and raising them, especially within the field of psychology. And it's not all bad as what it seems to be. It's not what you're thinking that it's supposed to be or expected to be, but it is going to be what it is. So I'm transitioning myself into that, but I do things outside of just being in psychology, like being a part of my fraternity, engaging in community events. Of course, doing stuff with my family, being able to give back. And sometimes just showing up and being a decent human being
Hmm.
is very overrated these days in today's economy. Just being a decent person, with respect. Some of the old ways, I know we kind of shun away from them, but some of them was really great. Like far as chivalry, or just far as just being nice to a person, or just opening the door for a person, regardless if they don't say nothing. Hopefully they do if you open it for them, but just being a decent human being.
Mm.
That you are, my man. That you are.
Appreciate it.
I think Dr. T started us off really good with a great example. For me, it looks like Also, volunteering my time, going into spaces with young minority kids and showing them that you can be a physician, you can be a doctor, you can be a lawyer, you can be a therapist. You can have swag. You can look the way you look. You can talk the way you talk, and present that representation in a way that is empowering to that next group of kids to want to come and do what we do. Right. I think that breaks a lot of cycles, and the representation, something I talked about earlier, is just something that is not, was intentionally limited in the beginning, but now we have a choice to be able to do that by spreading ourselves out in different spaces with balance, obviously with some wisdom, right? But being able to do that and then hand out resources and things. So when I'm asked to come speak, I'll be doing a fatherhood presentation with several men later on this month. And then I was asked to come speak to a group at the YMCA. And I'm going to take advantage of those opportunities and give of myself to make sure that I'm handing out more hope and empowerment to the group of kids that does see me and hear me. So that's one way that I plan on doing that, attacking that.
Yeah, I think that's fire too, the fatherhood thing. Cause like, I mean, I'm thinking just a young men you talking to like young fathers or something?
So fathers are going to be there, and they're going to bring their sons. Um,
Yeah. I
and
just
so,
think so many people are fathers and didn't like have a father, so it's like cool that you are a father. You might be able to just drop a little gems on them. I think
yeah,
that's wow.
and even uncles that don't have, that might have nieces or nephews, they're just as powerful. You know what I'm saying? To give them that information because they are leading.
Yeah, for sure. I
Absolutely.
think for me professionally, I really try to cater to like young people, like 21, 20, 19, 23. Like I know I said it out of order, but like that age group. Because I think of me like, man, if I'd have known about therapy or just like whatever anxiety or trauma, whatever we're dealing with at that time, and just like having someone to talk with and learn yourself a little bit and get some relevant advice, like how far ahead would that put you? So like my goal is that in working with me and me working with people that they're able to skip the line a little bit, so they're not always at the end. I'm hoping somebody can skip the line. I hope I help somebody at some point. Skip the line, go to the front, get your shit,
Fast, fast.
and pass that along for your people, and we're gonna keep it
Hmm.
rocking like that.
Love that.
I like that. For me, I think is like cutting out the gatekeepers. You know, what I'm saying I think we came up in an era of super gatekeeping, and even now I feel like I see a lot of it. So that's definitely something I want to like not continue to perpetuate. With that in mind, I mean, I personally just started on a kind of like a quick. I just found me a mentor who's gonna help me out for the next 6 months or so. And the agreement that we had with that is that like once I'm where I want to be, once I get there, I got to turn back around and I got to pay it forward to somebody else. And I made that agreement. And I was like, I love it, and that's something I want definitely for sure will want to do and will do. Moving forward, I'm not a supervisor yet, but it's been in the back of my mind. Trying to figuring out like how I can make that work for my lifestyle, and also what I'm saying for the people coming up behind me. So that's really what I want to focus on doing right now. I'm just starting on the giving back aspect.
I love that. All right. So as we close, I'd like to ask you guys one final question. So what is one piece of information, knowledge, or wisdom that changed your life once you finally had access to it?
Ooh,
I got one. You say it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I was told it's not who you know, it's who knows you. And I feel like that
Mm,
always kept with me. And I need you to know me, not I just know you, because I can know you if I call you and you don't answer, that don't matter. But if you know me, like you answer, then it matters.
I like that. I'm gonna start adding that onto it
Yeah,
because that is important.
yeah,
Like you can know them all you want to.
yeah. If they, you don't do not disturb, if they don't text
Yeah.
back.
Everybody know LeBron. LeBron does not know who I am. I'm not getting no good seats.
Yeah. Or even the people who know him for real, like just somebody who like really knows him, like talk to him. But it's like you ain't Rich Paul. Like I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. You're not part of the inner circle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Mhm.
So, what knowledge changed your life once you finally had access to it?
Hmm.
Mm, I think the networking component was something that I always was good at until I realized the power of it. Until I really started being in spaces that I wasn't previously, but they talked about me in those spaces, and
Mm.
then those people were calling out to me. I mean, a good portion of my caseload came from word of mouth, right? So just being able to understand the power of the networking opportunities and sharing that information with the youth as well, so that they know that when they go into spaces that they need to become builders and not tear downs of each other, right? I taught that to the youth a lot. So that information was really powerful for me once I realized the power of networking.
Mm. Okay. For me, I'm bringing it in inwards, and that is that like self care is a necessity. It's not something that you need to earn. Like you can't you can't be help anybody else if you yourself are drowning. So recognizing that, like, first and foremost, I got to make sure that I'm good. So that I have all of my needs met. And once I have that, it's so much easier to help other people, and it's much more fulfilling when you're giving when you're giving from a place of like I don't know, that's not, I'm not I want to say excess, but when you got extra to give, it feels good to give it, as opposed to like giving and this is your last. It don't hit the same. So I say I that changed my for me is like I focus on like how I'm doing, focusing on making sure that I'm doing well before I try to help anybody else.
When
I
you
like
talk about capacity, that's
Yes.
good, bro. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good stuff.
Just because you can do it doesn't mean that you should be doing it.
I like that.
That's real.
So, audience comment. I've always told myself it's not what you know, it's who you know, and once you know them, let them know what you know.
Mm.
Keep passing it on.
Good information.
Okay, Miss Irene.
I like that. So, for me, I think definitely what all of y'all said too, but for me, it's also that there's nothing that's impossible. It's how much do you want to make the impossible possible, right? And so, even though it seems like it's unattainable right now, there's always a path to get it if you decide that you want to work for it. Um, so that is one of the things that changed my perspective on things, and also which aids in a lot of my creativity because there's never a time where there's not a way around something, right? Like there's always a way around something, a barrier. There's always something that you can do to get through that. And so that kind of changed my life because I was like, wait, so you mean just because this is a roadblock, there's a way to like drive through it? um, so thank y'all so much for the combo. I love that we have these conversations every month because it gives us a chance to sit back, really think about like the different things that come up. Like Dr. Scott said, it helps us identify the gaps, but also we get to talk about what are the different ways that we can change the systems that are impacting us as well. And so it's reminds us that information is more than awareness. It also impacts the way that we see freedom. It impacts our health, our wealth, opportunity, but most of our mental wellness. And so Juneteenth is coming up, and that taught us about the consequences of delayed information as well. But it also teaches us the power of sharing. And so, with that, I hope that we continue to build communications or communities in which information is not hoarded, gatekept, or hidden is shared with each other, because access should not depend on luck. It should depend on us building our community stronger. And I can get on a rant about some of the videos that I've been seeing recently, but I ain't gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna send y'all on y'all way and wish y'all well. Thank you so much to our panelists, and we'll see y'all next month.